Since it first started tumbling into Ireland through the old pirate coves of West Cork and in the stomachs of drug mules coming from Miami, cocaine has become the drug of our nation. It has swept in like a blizzard, dusting every corner of every small town, and so swift and total has its spread been that the Irish are now some of the biggest users in the world. But to unravel how a small island like ours on the edge of Europe ended up such a big player in the major cocaine leagues, we must follow the white supply lines back to the beginning. We must follow the routes it has taken as it travels across the globe. And most importantly, we need to follow the cowboys who put us on the map. So join me, Nicola Tallant, for my new live show, Cocaine Cowboys, the story of Ireland's love affair with Colombia's biggest export. Limited tickets now available for February 10th at the Lime Tree Theatre in Limerick, February 15th in Cork's Everyman, and at Dublin's 3 Olympia on Sunday, February 18th. Tickets available at venues or on mcd.ie. Martin Foley has been in and out of courtrooms like a blue arse fly all his life.
Yeah.
And, you know, not only has he been taken to court on various criminal matters and criminal assets bureau matters, but he's also taken quite a number of cases against people, publications. He's a bit of an old sewer, isn't he?
He's a sewer, definitely. He's had a burst of court activity in recent times, hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
But he has certainly sued various media organisations unsuccessfully. He's been involved in various civil matters, and then of course he was involved in a massively long-running case with the Criminal Assets Bureau as well, which stretched on over a huge amount of time and ultimately ended up being very unsuccessful for him and leaving him indefinitely in owing a huge amount of money. But yeah, it
doesn't seem to have, I mean, this case has gone on and on and on, and it's now been struck out on agreement with both sides. So this is the latest thing, and we'll just try and explain it as simply as we can. So both Foley and his wife were alleging a breach of privacy over a Garda raid on their home, and they were suing the former Dublin City Sheriff and the state following the seizure of some goods from their home in 2014. Basically, the case that, you know, they hadn't filed enough affidavits or whatever it was. It had kind of gone dead, the case. And the sheriff had since retired and is fed up of having this thing hanging over him, I'm sure. And so they basically have all agreed that it's just struck out. Yeah, I mean, it's not going ahead.
The sheriff brought it to a head, said, look, I've retired since, I think it was 2018, it's 2024 now, nearly said 2023. So it's,
so it's 10 years.
And he's gone 6 years. He's no hope of defending it. If it comes, like, it's prejudice against him. It's much more difficult with the passage of time. And Martin Foley and his wife, Sonia, did not oppose it.
She's Sonia Doyle, also known as Foley. So they were suing the now retired Sheriff James Barry, the Garda Commissioner, the Minister for Justice, Ireland, and the Attorney General, alleging this breach of privacy that occurred in their home on October 15th, 2014.
Which was to do with, they said, the photographers and the media were part of the raid, 2014. And it just shows you, like,
photographers and media, do you recall this?
I don't remember it. And that shows you how the passage of time, you can understand why the courts threw it out. Yeah. So I was going, God, were we there? Which I don't think we were.
I don't know.
But I don't remember it in particular.
And what was the raid?
Well, it was a raid. So there was a couple of bits to it. It was basically a raid on their home in Cashel Avenue. Now, the problem for Martin Foley to prove something like this is that, you know, everybody knows where Martin Foley lives in Crumlin. He cycles around the place. You know, if the media get calls constantly, every time there's, you know, say there's a load of police cars around some location, we get a call, there's been something has happened. You get like 5 or 6, 7 of them a day. Yeah. So if somebody is raiding Martin Foley's house, you're going to get a call, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
This case, sorry to interrupt you, but it was the Criminal Assets Bureau.
Yeah, so they were calling to the house, and the other problem was, of course, I looked back on it because I couldn't remember it, and then I found out on the day of the raid, he'd also given a few quotes to the Irish Daily Mirror at the time.
Were they sort of fuck off quotes, or were they a bit friendlier than that?
No, he was a bit friendlier, and he accused them. He said the cab had tried to take his pets, including Harry the Ferret. They tried to implicate Harry the Ferret and his Jack Russell. Right. So he was given out because, obviously people would have had his phone number. His phone number was publicly there as part of his debt collecting business, and people did used to phone him. But obviously the Irish Daily Mirror had phoned up, and he'd given a few quotes at the time accusing cab of trying to seize his ferret, Harry.
They got to be in his bonnet anyway about the couple. They both said that several journalists and photographers were present when the operation took place.
Yeah.
And they claimed that several articles and photographs were published in newspapers about the operation.
Yeah.
That the defendants, basically, which is Ireland, the Attorney General and all those I've left out, had negligently provided the media with sensitive and private information basically about this search and seizure operation. And they were looking for damages. They were looking for... they were looking for a few vials of the Attorney General's blood and God knows what else.
Yeah. But, I think it's harder to maintain a privacy case if you have done an interview yourself, obviously. Well, he might say it's after the fact, but, so, look, this is, I think sometimes guys like...
He's an agitator, Foley, he's one of those that fights the system and fights every way he can. And there's plenty of, I'm sure... in a number of times. Has he ever been successful with suing anyone?
He may well have been, but not of the ones that we've reported on.
Car accidents or whatever.
But I think the big one was the cab case, because that went on. And, ultimately he lost. And it wasn't just then he was hit with a bill for the original amount, but he was hit with a bill for the compound interest on that amount. And I presume that's still ongoing.
Of course. How is he going to pay that?
Effectively, he was left with such a large bill that he'd never be able to repay it fully, I would imagine. So I don't know if this raid was part of that, but that was, I suppose, where people like Martin Foley can be oppositional and always put up a fight, but it can be sometimes self-destructive. But I think here he's decided...
But he's been sued himself, as well, because of the Viper recovery business that he runs. And the last time we were talking about him, he seemed to have got into a friendship or a business relationship with... Jonathan Gill?
Yeah, Jonathan Gill, who was charged with a tiger kidnapping, but ultimately found not guilty.
And the two of them were photographed basically collecting or attempting to collect a debt together. But sometimes that has got him into a little bit of trouble. In 2017, the brother of bankrupt developer Sean Dunn was awarded €10,000 by the High Court over intimidation of himself and his family. He was claiming happened because of Foley's debt collection agency. And at that point, Foley was described by a judge in the courts as a notorious criminal, which of course he is. He's survived 5 attempts on his life and has been wounded 14 times. He famously carries all these bullets in his body, supposedly. And they have to just stay there, basically. He has been one of the great survivors in a way. He started out his career with Martin the General Cahill, and he has sort of forged a retirement of sorts using his reputation that he gained over the years to sort of maybe encourage people, shall we say, to hand over money that they owe on a private capacity. He has been running that debt collection agency for a number of years. The last time we spoke, we were trying to work out how much he was earning a day, and it didn't sound like very much. A couple of £100.
No, I think he obviously started with Martin Cahill, and if you remember, obviously, the Tango 1 policing project where they sat on the key members of Martin Cahill's gang, and Martin Foley, of course, was one of them. Then he was a bit younger than the general, but he was regarded as probably being one of the heavies, one of the more dangerous people in that organisation. He obviously had convictions. I think it's 40 or 50 convictions. Some of them including for a couple for assault. And he, as the Martin Cahill gang Martin Cahill was killed, Foley went on to stay at the peak of criminality through the turn of the century. He would have been seen as mentoring some of the people that went on to become involved in the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud, remained very much at the centre of those operations that were going on in that part of the city. But I suppose there's a few incidents that really made him so notorious, and most of them are to do with surviving assassination attempts. In 1984, he was involved in the IRA basically tried to abduct him, or did abduct him, and as he was being abducted from his home, he put up a great resistance. The Gardaí were alerted. The IRA bundled him into the back of a van, and they were pursued by the Gardaí, and it led to a shootout that had come on the back of these well-publicised incidents where Martin Cahill's gang had set themselves up as concerned criminals after being targeted as being accused of drug dealing, basically, which I think was unfair at the time. So that was his first great escape. He became headline news across everywhere. Then he survived an assassination attempt, a shooting attempt in 1995 at Fatima Mansions after probably falling foul of the Gilligan gang. And then he was famously shot in Terenure outside of a gym as he left in 2000, shot a number of times. Initially people thought he was going to die, but he survived. So that's part of the great Martin Foley story, I suppose.
Last time he actually survived an assassination attempt was in January 2008.
Yeah.
And he was shot and wounded outside a gym in Drimnagh, was it, or Crumlin? I can't remember. Not sure, but
at that point, it was...
At that point, it was believed that it was James Quinn that was the gunman, who's actually his nephew, who was serving a sentence in Spain for the murder of Gary Hutch.
And that probably was brought to an end, Foley's career at the top of the criminal ladder, because what seems to have happened was that he fell out with the Kinahans, basically. There had been a dispute over money. Foley had taken a kind of a pig-headed defiant stance again, said, I'm not going to pay this. He'd obviously said he'd mentored some of those guys, so he knew these guys on the ground in the Crumlin area. But when the Kinahans had decided that's unacceptable, that you don't pay your money, they'd recruited people that were well known to Foley and had known him all their lives, as you said, James Quinn, but there was others mentioned as well. He survived that, and I think after that, his days as a top criminal were over. We always heard that ultimately he managed to make some peace with Christy Kinahan Sr., who had been particularly gunning for him. And at that point, then he moved into the debt collection business. The debt collection business is a lot less profitable, as you said, than.
Do you know what age he is?
Well, is he a pensioner?
He's 73.
Is he 73? Yeah.
How long is he going to keep intimidating people for money? Or
well, I mean, if you owe Cab £1 million, you have a lot of debts to repay, don't you?
Yeah, but I mean, how long is he going to be? 73. He's very, very fit. He still attends the gym and, works out and all the rest of it. But
he has a young family as well.
He does. His wife is 30 years his junior. They married in 2003, and he became a father shortly after the wedding.
Yeah.
Then, so that's 10, 11 years ago.
And he obviously he had a wife who died very tragically of an illness. He has grown-up daughters who are, well grown up now and have their own families. But he had a second family, so maybe he has to keep going, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, even last year, he was back before the courts to do with a court case that involved a debt collection and allegations of intimidating a businessman over a debt. So he continues to get in this type of trouble, I suppose.
Yeah, he's definitely one we haven't heard the last of. I wonder how many cases are still before the courts there, and when he's next going to show up suing the Attorney General and the Garda Commissioner. He's high sort of ambitions, still.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's when you're going to go
suing Ireland.
Yeah, but that's actually a kind of a common one that you see.
I know.
Did you see that with the people suing the guards? They always go for the full jugular.
Minister for Justice, the guards, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Foley for you. So he's settled that one, or that's been chucked out. So that's one off the list for him.
That's one off the list indeed.
All right.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.